Hayling Island is a small island of most people associate with Portsmouth.
It's only a small place, but real tennis is about all we have to do over here, along with the other things at Seacourt, which are now Padel and lawn tennis and rackets and all the other things. So if it wasn't for Seacourt, I'm not really sure what I would do. Probably move, I think.
My name's Andrew Lyons. I'm the senior real tennis professional at Seacourt.
My name's Paul Weaver. My involvement's been a bit of pretty much everything.
The club was founded in 1911 by a gentleman called John Marshall.
John Marshall had learnt to play the game at Cambridge when he was at university. It's a bit of a weird story, but his thing he studied at the end of his last year was mosquitoes, and he had this idea that he could rid a given area of mosquitoes by interrupting their breeding pattern. So he wanted to find an island that had a mosquito problem that he could test it out in, and that was Hayling Island.
Not just a real tennis court, but he lived just behind the club in what's called Seacourt House, which is now owned by several members.
He then found that he was having trouble getting his ex-friends from Cambridge to come down all this way in 1911 so he built a real tennis court in the back garden. It's the lowest real tennis court in the world, I think, and that's because Mrs. Marshall said that he could build it in their back garden as long as he didn't spoil her view of the downs.
Yeah, initially it was a private club just owned by himself, and then he got other people to join him and create a small membership.
Well, it fell into disrepair around the time of the war. John Marshall died, I think, in 1940, I think just in the war.
Because the court was in disarray, it was collapsed, there were trees coming through the roof was collapsed, the court and the club needed lots of repair, so a group of people came together and brought the club back to life, thankfully.
At one point it was actually sold for building development, so someone was going to clear the site and build houses here. Well, fortunately Ned Danby, who is Nick and Paul's dad, heard of this and had worked here as a general repairman when he was young. He thought it was a real shame to lose this old place, so he spoke to the builder who had bought the land and was redeveloping it and bought it back off him, something that would never happen these days, and thus Seacourt was saved at that time.
I think it kicked off again in the sort of late 60s with a group of members here that became the directors and founders and put the whole package together.
And sometime, I guess in the 60s or so, the squash boom came along and they added squash courts to it, and it became like the beginning of a real proper sports club, which it is now.
The club had the real tennis court initially, and there used to be gardens out the back. So that all became lawn tennis courts. Then the Rackets court was here because they're basically the same sort of building with the floor. And then the squash courts, we had lots of squash courts, and the bar area all came together afterwards and just built up to be a nice complex. Seacourt offers real tennis, rackets, squash, fencing.
So we've got lawn tennis, 2 lawn tennis courts, badminton court.
Lots of classes, dance classes, Pilates, yoga.
Max Trueman, I'm the ex-assistant acting professional at Seacourt. We've recently had a Crossfit gym added onto one of the other squash courts, and a golf simulator into the other one.
Squash, racquetball.
Table tennis, fencing, literally gym, literally everything.
And hopefully in the future we'll also be offering Padel. Seacourt has always been known as a family club, so the atmosphere in here is generally quite electric. It's busy in the evenings with the bar. We have a wonderful chef who creates meals, dinners.
The bar, it's a really nice bar. We've got a sort of little members bar bit where it's very old-fashioned, sort of old-looking wood and pool table, darts board. Yeah, people just come down, have a drink, watch tennis, do whatever, play a game of pool. And then we've got the restaurant as well, which we've got a new chef who's, from what I've heard, the food's amazing. So
we have bar mitzvahs, wakes, birthday parties. So the club gets used for all kinds of events, which brings in lots of new members.
To a lot of people, it's just a pub. It's if I'm on a Thursday evening or something, just want to go out for a drink, this is where I come, because it's always got 20-30 people in, just like a pub.
The big events at Seacourt will be what we are running at the moment, which is the Seacourt Silver Racket, which is our flagship real tennis tournament, which Brings in players from all over the world.
We will have all the club tournaments going on, various club tournaments, lawn tennis, badminton, squash, all of it. We'll have a big sort of summer ball in the summer, and then Christmas parties, New Year's Eve parties, literally got the lot.
We have big functions like New Year's Eve, that'll be a big night for the club, and generally, you know, tournaments that run along with dinners and parties. So it's a great place to be.
Atmosphere is amazing. Like this week, with the tennis on, it's been packed. I think the Silver Rackets always the biggest week of the year for Seacourt. All the members coming in, having a drink, watching the tennis. The support for the players is just amazing. Sort of, even being on court, the support's just great.
We also have had the World Junior Championships here twice, so that was big, and that was probably even bigger than Silver Racket. You know, we had when about 90 people in for dinner on the last night, and that was people from all over the world playing. It was great.
The thing about this club, the real tennis court, is quite a fast court and very severe. So if you play in other clubs, they can be quite bouncy. Seacourt is well known for being quite a severe court and also quite a low roof because we have beams.
So traditionally Seacourt's sort of the least bouncy court, I think you want to say. The ball cuts down really well. You don't really have to do that much with the ball.
Because we have a water table that runs under the club that drags the pressure under the floor, so it makes the ball stay low. So you'll find a lot of people out here bending their knees a bit more than they used to, chasing balls down, but a very severe court. And as the week's gone on, when the weather changes, it slows down a bit. But generally, a fairly standard court for a lot of people, but fast and furious.
The court plays better now than it did, I think. It used to have this terrible reputation for being unplayable. People used to say, oh, well, you know, it just dies in the back corners, and you know, what can you do? You know, and I think that was the court, but it was also the balls back in those days. The balls were not like the balls are today. So we've now got friendlier balls with a bit of bounce in them.
Yeah, traditional court. I think it's Bickley. So I think traditionally I just love to play on Bickley courts. I think they all play really well. Seacourt, I mean, it's fairly easy to serve on, the roof's pretty flat. I think floor game works really well here, obviously because the ball just stays so low, anything on the back wall is just going to die. And then obviously with a fairly big dead on, it's good to hit sort of main walls and straight forces. But as long as you don't hit the roof, because then it goes with the low roof. Like if you're hitting the penthouses, it's just going out. And
I would rate the court now as tricky, but much better than it used to be. Well, the Rackets court was an indulgence, if you like, of the owners of the club, mostly the Danbys, who loved rackets, and they wanted to have it. And there was this thing that if we had a rackets court, we'd have a court for every racket sport at that time, and we'd be in the Guinness Book of Records. And so that's how it sort of came. And they built a rackets court, and it cost a lot of money, and it almost put the club out of business.
This rackets court is probably one of the most irritating courts for people because of the angles the wall creates. The ball seems to drag into the middle of the court more than other clubs.
The rackets court it's not bad. It's pretty inconsistent, to be fair, but it's good fun. It's good to serve on. The ball it will hit the front wall and cut down nicely, and then the back wall's a bit sort of inwards, so anything hitting the back wall is just going to cut down, a bit like the real tennis court, to be fair.
We have just recently started rackets tournaments, so the youngsters are playing more. The Tennis and Racket Association have been generous and given us some rackets so we can start off a new sort of junior club. Yeah, since the 80s there have been quite a few junior members here, because Seacourt thrives on junior membership and still does today. We have a lot of help from a member called Paul Weaver, who helps develop junior players with us in the club.
I started playing here when I was about 7-ish. My granddad literally lives next door, so he got me started here. So we've got Paul Weaver here, who's a big part of junior tennis in the UK.
I just enthuse, right? I get these youngsters and I get them really into real tennis, and they really get the bug.
And yeah, he's so up for getting juniors playing. He does a few lessons a week. We've got the pros doing lessons, and then basically the aim is just to get them as good as possible and get them to the Junior British Open sort of the following year.
Once you've got it going, it keeps itself going, because there's groups of youngsters looking at people like Will Flynn, Max Trueman, James Medlow now, who desperately want to be Will Flynn, Max Trueman, James Medlow. So I've got a group now on Saturday morning of 13. They talk about Max and Will as like legends, and they just want to be like them. And one day they'll be like that, and there'll be some more little ones and it just keeps going.
So I started when I was 7. I was having group sessions with the pros, and then Paul's always been there. He's always there to chat, and if we need any help with sort of funding through the dentist for lessons and stuff, it's literally just court time, I think.
Even this morning from 8 o'clock, nice and early, get the kids out of bed.
And the track record over the years is fantastic. We've got, I think it's 12 at the moment, 12 professionals from Hayling Island in the world. And there's only about 50 professionals, so it's about a quarter of the world's professionals currently. It's all well and good talking about what a great factory of juniors we have coming through the system. We also get an awful lot of support from the dentists, and it would be remiss to not mention that. The beginners, like I had this morning, the 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, the courts are paid for by the Dentist Foundation, and that's great, and they do that in many clubs all over the country, and it just keeps youngsters coming into the game. So money's not an issue for them to play it. And then when they get better and they get like Max and Will and James, then the Dentist Society gets involved, and all of those 3 guys are in the Society's British Academy, and they get support. They get physical training support, diet, and all sorts of things, as well as coaching with some of the best coaches in the country.
You can come through to ourselves at the Real Tennis Department, which is realtennis@seacourt.com, or you can come through to our main reception, which is reception@seacourt.com, or give us a call anytime on 02392 466 122, and we'll be happy to help.